Hey, everybody, this is Eric Rousseau with the Comedy Film Festival. I'm joined today by a group of lovely filmmakers that have their films playing May 8th through the 10th at the Comedy Film Festival in Austin, Texas. So happy and thrilled to introduce everybody to you. Let's start with Jacob. Jacob, tell us a little bit about yourself and your film.
Yeah, so I'm Jacob Clark. I'm an Austin-based writer, director, DP, editor, creative extraordinaire, if you will. And my film is the sitcom and the drama. It's a mixed format dramedy that just explores the sort of the world we present to everybody, and it's our curated little image of how we like people to see us, and then also the behind the scenes of whenever the lights are off, the cameras stop rolling. What do you actually like? What's going on?
Awesome. And on the other side of the camera, we are also joined by Jamie Campbell. Jamie, good to have you back.
It's good to be back. I was at the very first Comedy Film Festival with a stand-up special that Jacob directed. And this film, I play Oliver, and it is a dramedy in a true sense. It was really nice to get a role that I could really sink my teeth into. I've got like a big emotional kind of breakdown monologue, and it was really self-affirming, I think, to have Jacob believe in me enough to let me sink my teeth into that role.
Awesome. Very much looking forward to talking about that one. Another alumni joining us, we've got Liam Fineout. Liam, glad to have you back. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your film you got this time.
Glad to be back. Yeah, my film is called T's and P's, which is kind of a short expression for thoughts and prayers. It is a political satire about gun control. It's basically about this it's this debate coach, and moments before a televised event about gun control, a mass shooting occurs, and kind of forcing the debate coach to pivot last minute for her conservative boss about the plan of how to kind of effectively convince people that they're on the right side of this problem. And we shot it all in Florida, North Florida. I'm from Tallahassee, and I actually just recently moved to NYC, so I'm a now NYC-based filmmaker. But and in the terms of my role on the film, I was the writer, director, producer, and composer. A lot of hats, but yeah, I'm really proud of it, and I'm really excited for it to be playing in Austin, and hopefully people will be able to see some of the comedy in it and some of the more poignant elements as well. So, yeah.
Awesome. Fantastic. And also joining us through a tour of New York, we've got Wendy. Wendy, tell us a little bit about yourself and your film.
Hi. Yes, I am showing everybody the most crowded part of New York City right now. But my film is Anxiety Club, and it's a feature documentary about anxiety through the lens of comedians. Most of them are stand-up comedians, and a couple of them do sketch comedy. And it's funny, and it's, I think, moving, and it's just it was a way to talk about a serious subject of anxiety, but packaging it with humor. We have 7 comedians, and one of the comedians we followed through something called exposure therapy. So that's my film, and it's my first feature, and I'm thrilled to be at your festival this year.
It'll be really cool to watch that one with a group, and I think exactly like what you said. I think that they're gonna be moved in both the, it's really tough at times, and the way that you would expect, but it's also really funny in a way that you wouldn't expect from a documentary.
Thank you.
And also, no better way for you to introduce Anxiety Club than to walk through New York while also FaceTiming. So
Right.
Perfect.
I hope I'm not giving anyone else anxiety. I'm just looking out for the lights to make sure that, I'm staying safe. Anyway.
Fantastic. And we also have Allison Brooks with us. Allison, tell us a little bit about yourself and your film.
Okay. Hey, everyone. I'm Allison Brooks. I'm based in New York City. My film is Sisters of Evergreen, which is a film that I wrote, directed, produced, edited, and starred in. It's a comedy, of course, and the film is basically about two women that audition to join a coven of witches and all the problems that stem from that. And I love this movie. I feel like it's a combination of like Broad City and What We Do in the Shadows. And making it was the most fun I've ever had in my whole life.
That's honestly so good to hear because it's the most fun to watch. So I'm so happy because sometimes it's like you see all the fun that's happening and you're like, I hope that they were having a good time too. So glad to hear that.
Oh my God, we shot it over 3 days and I really felt like it was the best 3 days of my life.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, excited to dive into that one. And lastly, we have Daniel. Daniel, tell us a little bit about yourself and your film.
Hi, I'm Daniel Solat. I'm based in Chicago, and I wrote and directed a Dead Pam Comedy, which is a short film about the funeral of an open mic comedian and all of the crazy people that you might meet at an open mic showing up. And it's hosted by the comedian's very timid and shy sister who has a fear of speaking and can't really get control of this funeral turned open mic.
Very good, very good. Some threads there. It's interesting to I didn't even necessarily think about this. I know some of these films are in the same block, but it's interesting to see where the threads are kind of all connected. I'm just gonna dive in with, why not something light? Let's talk about mass shootings. Why not? Liam, how did you even come up with this and the idea to turn it into a comedy of all things?
Sure. Yeah. So I went to Florida State University film school and in North Florida, Tallahassee. And this was actually originally an idea I had as my thesis for my capstone project. And I had pitched it to my classmates and they all were like, man, that's terrible. Nobody thought it was a good idea. And I'm kind of glad about it because it was at first, only supposed to be I would have only had 8 minutes, which with this kind of subject matter, I don't think would have been enough. But I was inspired by, truth be told, everyday news. It's hard not to be completely witnessing this type of stuff every day, it feels like, right? And that was part of the reason why people told me it wasn't a good idea to make the project as well. They were like, oh, well, there's, some sort of tragic shooting every day. That's why you shouldn't make this. And I was like, well, I feel like that's the exact reason why I should make it, right? But that's kind of, I guess, like I said, just the news and having to come up with a bunch of different ideas for class, right? And then after I graduated, some time had passed, I had made a short that you guys actually had accepted and tied up and won Best Student Short. So excited about that. That was awesome. But after I had made Tied Up and after I graduated, I was like, what do I want to do? And I was looking at, some of my ideas and I was like, man, I don't know, this one's really calling to me. And I decided to go back to that one and I made it. And actually, sadly, during the post-production of the film, when we were in the middle of editing, there was actually a shooting at Florida State University. 2 people died. So it kind of was once again, cementing the idea of yeah, this is something that should have been made. But yeah, that's kind of the inspiration. And but yeah, it was inspired in 2022, shot in 2024, completed in 2025. So, but yeah.
It's exactly like what you said, it's something that we deal with every day. And I think that, trying to bring this satirical approach to it is such an interesting kind of conversation piece. So similar but different. I think, Jacob and Jamie, y'all's film and what it's doing, just talking about mental health, talking about these dichotomies that exist within people. Tell us a little bit about how you landed on this, the framing, because this is such unique framing. Jacob, I think you kind of alluded to it, and Jamie as a performer, you're really being taxed on both sides. Part of it really does feel like you're a sitcom performer, and part of it you're like you said, the monologue. So tell us about this process, this creative process that went into this.
Yeah, Jacob, it was all your brainchild. So and very personal too. So yeah, go ahead. Tell them.
So, kind of what sparked this to be written, the short, I wrote it. I had the idea like driving to work, and it was one of those things where like I had the idea and I was like, oh, that's like an interesting idea. And that night I sat down and I wrote all of it in like 2 hours. And what is on the screen is, probably 90% of that first draft. I mean, it was just one of those things, just inspiration struck and I ran with it. But the original kind of story this is based off of is a personal story of my wife. She was having to, work in corporate America, and then also having to deal with her grandparents, specifically her grandfather, who was a father figure to her growing up. His health was declining a lot. And so she was the kind of like most put together person of her family. And so she had to be the person that, lined up like, where is he going to stay? Like, what are we going to do as a family moving forward? How do we tackle this whole situation? And that responsibility looked, there was an emotional responsibility, a financial responsibility. It was just like a very hard situation. And me as a person, the way I cope with things is just being like, it's fine. Everybody like, look over here. I'm doing like a puppet show or something. And so just trying to like fight negativity with positivity. And a lot of times with comedy, it just sort of, I don't know. It just made sense to me to be like, oh, like, what if we had somebody that, was in like a sitcom, like their life is a sitcom because that's what they want it to be. That's like their curated image of how they want to be presented to the world. I'm just a class clown, funny guy. But like everybody behind closed doors, everybody has stuff going on. Like life is hard. It throws punches at you that you just have to like roll with. And so, what if we could see somebody that is in the middle of a big struggle like that is flipping back and forth between like, oh, I'm doing my sitcom thing over here. Then whenever they get alone and they can decompress, then the drama comes out. And it's just like, oh man, I just got to like sit in my car silent for a little bit. I just need to sit here and calm down, like just, kind of collect myself and okay, now I got to move on with my day. So yeah, that's the kind of the inspiration behind it all was, like Jamie said, a very personal story, which since then I've lived through a couple of more times, unfortunately. And it was something very special on while we were shooting this, whenever you make a film and it's something that you wrote from a very personal perspective, you go, oh man, this is a little selfish of me. I just want to like be like, hey world, here's how I process my emotions. So I'm going to like make a film about it. But person after person during production, they were like, man, I'm going through like a really similar situation right now. Or like, oh man, my parents had to do this with my grandparents. It was really hard on them. Like, it was just like person after person personally connected with the story that was being told. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I'm not being selfish. Like, this is just a shared human experience that is just kind of part of life and something we all have to go through.
Yeah, to me, it just made me think about how anytime something terrible is happening in our lives, we still have to deal with all the minutia of the day-by-day stuff. When I first read the script, it reminded me of a time when I used to live in Chicago, and I was doing stand-up, and literally a half hour before I took the stage, I found out that my grandfather had died, and a family member had attempted suicide. And so, like, my mind was in a whirlwind, and I very easily could have been like, hey guys, I can't do the show tonight. But it didn't even cross my mind because we get so used to just the routine of the things we have to do. So I went out there and in this strange daze performed stand-up, and it seemed so meaningless getting the laughs in that room because my heart wasn't in it. And I think that was just kind of a microcosm of something that we all deal with. For sure. And I think those are really interesting and valid kind of points of like that relatability that's going on in that human experience. So I feel like already we're kind of feeling the feels with what's going on, all the stories. I'm going to do a little bit of a palate cleanser. Allison, I want to hear a little bit about Sisters of Evergreen. You mentioned how fun it was to shoot. It again looks so fun. Tell me a little bit about like the group that you worked with.
where this idea came from and what that experience was like shooting it.
So the group that I shot with was actually all people I've met through doing improv. And my side hustle, if you will, is I work in lighting. So the whole crew was all people I've met through my other job. So it was literally just like a big group of friends. And to me, like, the environment I like to create when working is that it doesn't feel like we're working. Like, the vibes are high, the energy is good, everybody's laughing. And I love to create that space so much. The movie was really inspired by my neighborhood. I live in Ridgewood, Queens. The whole movie is based in Ridgewood, Queens. And the main character and I, who is someone that I have written a film for us prior, her and I were sitting in the cemetery because Ridgewood doesn't have a park. So if you want grass, you go to the cemetery. And we were just kind of like spitballing ideas back and forth of like making a movie in the cemetery. And yeah, and of course, like, the whole movie is also like a commentary on the gentrification of my neighborhood, and you know how these like witches could also just be deemed as hipsters from like an outsider's perspective. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's not you know, I think something that I really struggled with making the movie is like, is this movie talking about something important enough? Like, am I making a political stance with this thing? Because that's, of course, that's what I want to do anyway. Like, I would like my voice to be heard in that way. And, you know, maybe it doesn't take a political stance, but I do think that it offers people so much joy and is just kind of a reminder that not everything needs to be so serious and that there is power in that.
I completely agree. I can attest to that for Sisters of Evergreen, and it's just it is just so fun. It's so joyous. It really like exudes that, and the performances are there. Absolutely. It's interesting that you say that about like the community of like lighting technician, because it's like the film looks so good. Like, I think when it starts and you read the synopsis, like, you're not expecting such a well-made film, and it really looks great.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, it is both a blessing and a curse to work in lighting, because I definitely am the first to notice when something looks bad.
Yeah, no, it's great. It feels like you took an idea of a sketch and then made like a actual film with it, which is great.
Thank you. Thanks.
Wendy, I am so curious to hear how this whole project got started for you. You know, this is, like you said, you know, you're working with comedians, you're working with like sketch online personalities. Like, how do you like draw the line to put all these different components together and build a story from that?
Well, it actually started, the original plan was to make a film about everyday people with anxiety and how to get from anxious to calm. And I was going to follow one person through a certain kind of therapy called exposure therapy. And that changed, obviously, along the way during the casting process and researching process. And it just evolved into comedians. And I should say, I struggle with anxiety. I'm part of the club. And so, you know, making this film was a bit of a quest for me, but really it was, you know, I wanted to make a film to help people who are struggling with anxiety. And I'd worked for a show called Nick News with Linda Ellerby for many years. And I had done an episode about teens with anxiety a while ago. And it was during that process that I kind of started thinking about making a feature film, because I saw that there was a lot of suffering, but I also saw how profound the treatment was that these kids were getting, and many of them were getting exposure therapy, which is basically part of cognitive behavioral therapy, where you face with the therapist, you face that which you're most fearful of in a safe and methodical way until it becomes until you see that it's not as scary as you thought, because there's so much avoidance when it comes to anxiety. Anyway, so once I hit on the comedians, it became very clear that that was the way to tell this story. And so just through the research process, talking to people, researching, looking online, seeing comedians, what comedians are doing material about their anxiety. Tiffany, the main character who we followed through exposure therapy, came through my co-producer, Janelle Draper. It was just a process of over a long period of time of looking into comedians and finding the comedians who, not only whose comedy I liked and the comedy that resonated with me, but they all had to be doing stand-up or sketch about their anxiety, not just their mental health, but specifically about their anxiety, and people who I felt would be open to being vulnerable in an interview situation, because it's one thing to do stand-up or to be in control of a sketch video, but it's another thing to sit down for a 90-minute interview and talk about your deepest, darkest feelings. And they all did that. It's been really interesting and a joy to work with all of these comedians who were very open and very giving and generous, both of their time and their perspective. So it's been a really interesting process.
So we all know like the long journey that documentaries can have, and really so much of the storytelling comes from the editing. But no matter where it was, whether it was, in that editing process or talking to those comedians, or maybe just through, not only your own anxiety, kind of journey, but speaking to everyone, what was the most surprising thing that you kind of came out of this whole process?
There were a lot of things that were surprising. I think one of them was, we followed this comedian, Tiffany Jenkins, through several sessions of therapy. And in the first session, she was diagnosed as having OCD, and she didn't know, and I didn't know. And, this film is called Anxiety Club. And I thought, oh no, what is this going to mean for the film? And it turned out really to be just a blessing, because it just was able to reach so many more people. Because even though anxiety and OCD are different, there's still a lot of shared symptoms. So that was interesting. I think what was surprising a little bit also was how, even though everybody in the film, they had very different stories, very different kinds of anxiety, but in a way, there was a really, core shared experience of what it feels like to have anxiety. And I think, it was surprising to me and a lot of people that these comedians who have anxiety were getting on stage and doing that whole thing. A lot of people said, how can these people with anxiety get on stage in front of, sometimes hundreds or more people and do what they do? But, what I learned is that in a lot of cases, that's where they feel most comfortable. And maybe it's not as comfortable if they have to talk to a fan after the show. And in other cases, some of the comedians, we didn't really get into this too much in the film, but, in other cases, the comedians were really, they do have anxiety getting on stage. And in one case, Baron Vaughn, I'll never forget this. He talked about how he would get on stage and he would look around the room and he would say, she's going to hate me. He's going to hate me. He's going to hate me. and would have that fear and insecurity until he gets the first laugh. And once he gets the first laugh, then he can settle in and he can be comfortable. So, there's all different kinds of experiences with that, but it was kind of amazing that these people with anxiety can be so comfortable and so in control on stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's like, it makes a lot of sense. Cause like when you take a step back, you're like, well, this is the one place where they can actually have some control.
Yeah.
I know that, for Mark Maron is featured in the film, and one of the quotes that I know it's not attributed to him. I don't know if he says it in the film, but he's quoted it a lot, is comedy. One of the reasons that people get into it is so they can control why people laugh. And I think like that's such a an interesting kind of idea of why people are laughing at you. So I think that just ties so much into that whole anxiety kind of thing.
Yes. I think that's very true. And one of the comedians, Baron Vaughn, talked about that, about how he grew up and, he had some challenges growing up, and he used comedy. He saw that he can have power and some control by making people laugh, even if it was, making the bullies laugh or making adults laugh. And it gave him a sense of power at a very vulnerable age and environment.
Well, again, this is it's a very, very special movie. I know we've had some email exchanges about it, and we're really, really happy to be able to showcase it.
Thank you so much.
So kind of on the flip side of things, Daniel, we're going to throw over to you. So a Dead Pam comedy is the worst thing that can happen in so many different ways. Quite a big, hefty anxiety moment, and in so many different ways. And it's also bringing together this idea of stand-up, open mic comedy, all blended into one short film. Where did this come from? How did you make this determination that all of this is going to play in the same space within a short film?
So the original inspiration came from the movie A Futile and Stupid Gesture, which is the story of Doug Kenny and the National Lampoon. And there's this crazy scene of his funeral, and his ghost is there asking why, this is the room of the funniest people on earth, why is nobody laughing? And so I've always loved that scene, and I've done stand-up, and I've been anxious about stand-up, and everyone that I'm friends with that does stand-up is anxious about stand-up. And I knew that I wanted to do a movie about stand-up. This was for my senior thesis at college. And so I figured, how can I pull this all into one film? And really, it was just, I knew I wanted to be able to throw as many comics as I knew and people that I love that I wanted to get into stand-up, give them an opportunity to do it in a safe space. So I built this story around that idea of what if you were at a funeral and everyone was laughing. Could be the most inappropriate thing of all time, but in the right circumstance, it's really heartwarming because it's what people care about.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really interesting point. And I think that it's especially coming from the world of comedy, we all, I think, have that vision of what you mentioned from the movie Futile and Stupid Gesture, I think is what it is. Yeah. Okay. And I remember watching that and also relating to it of you do want people to be joyous, no matter what, we have that want and desire, but kind of a multiple times where we've talked about this throughout this conversation of it's tough. We're also dealing with the horrors of the world, and now, how do we bring a little bit of light and joy into that? Well, really well done. Really, really happy that we're able to have the film at the fest. So I know we're a little bit short on time. Sometimes that happens with a bigger group. So I'll do the thing. Some people hate it, some people love it, but I'm always curious what people are working on next. So Liam, we'll start with you. I know that you just went through a big move. This was kind of like capping a little bit of postgraduate excursion for you. What do you have going on next?
So actually, for the past a little over the past year, I've been working on a documentary. It's very serious, actually. It's not comedic whatsoever, but the DP of my film, Pierce Ryan of T's and P's, the whole reason why he was actually in North Florida was because his father was passing away from early onset Alzheimer's in his late 50s. And he wanted to make a documentary about that. And we are actually fiscally sponsored by Film Independent. We've been able to raise like $85,000 for the documentary. We've been just trying to, meet with different people. They were just in France at an Alzheimer's association meeting and stuff like that. So it's not funny whatsoever, although there is some funny scenes in the movie. And Pierce, who has made some comedies, DP'd some comedies, he's proud of the fact that his father still kind of like exhibited like signs of comedy, and that his family kind of had a good sense of humor about it. Oh,
Jacob.
Sorry.
Yes. Go ahead.
I realized I didn't say the name of the project. If you want to just like search it up or anything. Right now, the working title is Jeff Goes Swimming. You can search it up on Film Independent or IMDb or whatever to learn a little bit more about the project and the director. But working title. But yeah, that's what I've been working on. Anyway, sorry about that.
Jacob and Jamie, tell us a little bit about what's next after the sitcom and the drama.
There is a feature version of the sitcom and the drama that is, mostly written. I need to finish it. So I'm working on finishing the feature script for it. But, so that would be cool. Maybe the right people see it and throw a little money its way, and it can be made into a feature-length version of the film. It would be exciting because, with shorts, you can only dive into so much. And even the sitcom and the drama, it's a long short. It's like 25-ish minutes long. I think it's like 24 and some change, something like that. And even that, it's like, man, there's so much meat left on the bone that we could you can just how everybody has complex lives. And so the feature version really like dives deeper into the complexity of Oliver's life and what makes it so hard to be in the situation he's in, but also getting to explore more of the B stories and more of his coworkers and, just exploring everybody's life. So that's the main thing. And then I've always got like a million other like things going on. I'm like an idea machine. So I'm like, oh, this would be fun to do. And then I like break off and do it. So I won't bore anybody with all a million mini projects that I torture myself with.
I've also got a bunch of mini projects. I feel like I'm really running on all cylinders right now. I'm 9 months cancer free, which is exciting. I had cancer last year, and I'm getting rid of a tumor. It's amazing how much better you feel when you don't have a tumor. I've been just kind of running full steam. I've got a Christmas feature coming out that I did some writing on, and I'm also a big supporting role. It's called Gingerbread Men. I think it should be out on streaming this Christmas. I'm excited about that. And I'm working on a new solo show that I think will be my next stand-up special, but it's going to be very non-traditional in that I want it to feel kind of like Mr. Rogers for adults. With everything that's happening in the world right now, I think we need something that makes us feel the same way that we felt like curious, full of wonder, and with a desire to connect to the other people that are in the room with us. It's called Kinder Words, and that is going to be premiering live in July with a run at the KC Fringe Festival, and then hopefully shooting it as a special shortly after.
There's nobody better to do that than Jamie Campbell. So really excited to hear that. And also really, really happy to hear that you're doing better. Had no idea that's quite a scare. So really happy to have you doing better, man. Daniel, tell us a little bit about what's next. I know you're kind of going all around the country on gigs and doing stuff, but maybe you got something completely different up your sleeve now.
I'm taking film jobs here and there when I can get them, but every day I'm writing with my writing partner. We're working on an animated pilot right now. It's a comedy. We're having a lot of fun with it. And I'm always going to love doing stand-up. It's not my deepest passion, but it's something that gives me creative freedom. And, I get up when I can. And so that's, I'm taking it easy and doing what I can when I can.
Allison, really happy that we've been able to bring you into the Comedy Film Fest fold, but what's next after Sisters of Evergreen?
Ugh, what's next? I have been super interested in clowning. I've really been trying to explore like what/who my inner clown is. I'm very interested in like clowning, performance art world. Actually, both times I've made a film was because I tried to write a play. So I would like to fulfill my duty. I love live performance. And I really kind of miss that. I don't like sitting at the computer for a year editing the same project. So yeah, I would say clowning. I love that shit. So catch me there.
That's awesome. That's so cool. It's somebody's got a clown, and I'm happy it's Allison.
Thank you.
Wendy, I know that you are wrapping things up with Anxiety Club, which is so exciting that people are going to be able to see it very, very soon. Tell us a little bit about not only getting that film out into the world, but what's coming next for you.
Well, it's going to be on TVOD, on transactional platforms on May 1st, actually. And I'm percolating on other projects, but I have to say, I'm really taking a deep dive into the impact campaign for this film. We're doing a lot of screenings with colleges, mental health organizations, comedy clubs. We're going to be at the Laugh Factory in LA on the 30th of this month. We're going to be at the Cellar in New York on the 27th. So I'm really, really spending a lot of time trying to create, I don't know, we'd like to say it's not just a movie, it's a movement. And I feel like I'm trying to do what we can to take this film to as many people as possible who need it, and to have, conversations around it, and to be, to have people laughing together and dialoguing, talking about their feelings and their anxieties. And it just, I think it's very healing. So I feel like I'm almost busier now than I was when I was making the film.
Wow, that's so cool. That's going to be so great and special for everybody. I feel like anytime that you can, have a film that engages directly, like sometimes it's just we're making it, we're putting it out in the world, and we don't really see, but now you're being able to actually connect. So that's really awesome, and no better project for it.
Thank you. I'm excited.
So before we wrap things up, last thing I want to put out to y'all, and I get it. Y'all are at the disadvantage here. I've seen your films. You haven't seen each other's films, but we've had these amazing conversations. I want to give the opportunity, if anyone would like to ask the other filmmakers, performers here, do y'all have any questions for each other about the process, about your films, about what's next, anything like that?
Wendy, I have a question for you. So you said that the film started out, just about anxiety and not necessarily comedy. So do you have any specific connection to comedy, a personal history with it? Or is it just the way that the filmmaking went that led you down this path?
Well, my husband is really into comedy, and he started sending me some people that he was following on social media, like Aparna Nancherla. And there was another film that had come out around this time that was similar to what I was thinking about making. And so it was like just forces coming together. I started, I realized that there are so many comedians who not only have anxiety, but who are doing stand-up about it or sketch videos about it. And it just kind of all came together, and I decided to just like take that deep dive. But I don't have any particular connections to comedy. I love comedy, but I just started reaching out to people and telling them what I was doing and asking them if they would be interested in participating. And I got a lot of positive responses from people because they knew that it was a film that was with the intention of helping people. And since they were people who were already struggling with their mental health. They just got it and they weren't bored. So,
And it's like just such a perfect kind of way that it seems like that all fell into place. Very awesome.
Oops.
Does anyone else have any questions? Jamie.
I've got one for Daniel, but really, if anybody has anything in their process that pops up that fits this, I would love to hear about it. Like filming something that is humorous, but in a funeral, especially with a bunch of comics. Were there any moments that you were like, oh, that is too dark for the film? It takes away from what we're trying to do. But man, it's really funny that you like maybe struggled with in the editing process.
I can't say there was ever a moment where I wasn't going to use something, because I knew that, you know, to get the message across that comedy is, you know, personal and it's whatever you make of it. There is, not to spoil anything before you guys see it, but there is one comic who is a stripper. And, you know, we were shooting in a church. They were very sweet about letting us film there. We were a little uncomfortable having him strip in the church, but ultimately, you know, he was a talented performer and it made the cut, and I'm happy it's in it. But no, there was never a point where we weren't going to use something. We were just a little uncomfortable doing it in the moment.
That's what we want. A full emotional reaction, the whole spectrum. And these films, I think one way or another, they managed to do it. You can check them all out at the Comedy Film Festival happening in Austin, Texas, May 8th through the 10th. Thank you to all the wonderful filmmakers and performers who joined us today, and looking forward to seeing you in Austin.